And here we are back with the raging loop. We had gone into this town. They're eating at the water hole, which I guess is like the cafeteria. People are kind of weird in this town, even though things seem normal. And we're gonna see what's going on. Higuchi, she gave me a genuine, sympathetic smile. No need for that. I think I wasn't in the right mind. Sorry for the bother.
まあ、そりゃいいが。
なるほど。申し遅れましたが、樋口昌司と申します。藤吉村の、まあ、雑用。
Pleased to meet you. I am Haruki Fusashi.
ハイカラな方ですね。イケメンですね。
I wouldn't say so.
どんな話だったのか伺ってもよろしいです？
うちはこれから飯にするんで、あとに。
そうか。いつもご自宅で炊事をされてるんでしたね。あ、そうだ。夫妻子さんはご朝食まだでしょ？なんならこれから一緒にいかがです？うちの実家の飯屋でね、おごりますから。ついでに差し支えなければ、いろいろお話でも聞けたらと。何？これでも一応世話役みたいなこともしておりまして。藤吉村で起きてることは何だって聞いておきたいたちなもんで。ええ。
You look gentle and easy to get along with, but also like someone I had to watch my step around. He just walked right up to the local police officer and asked him for information like it was a casual request. It's clear who was in charge here. I gave the officer a glance at the corner of my eye, but he stopped talking. Felt like the conversation I had with him could have led to his sharing breakfast with him, his wife, but he hadn't said anything about Soji Haiguchi writing me. It was like he was telling me to accept it. Or perhaps there was just no point in trying to refuse. May I? Even so, I did ask for his
食った
permission.
ら、一応戻してもらってもいいですかね。
But the officer didn't even want to talk to me anymore.
まだ聞きたいこともありますんでね。
Perhaps Fujiyoshi was a place where, in his presence, you couldn't even have a conversation without him involved.
ええ、ええ。もちろんですよ。
Anyway, it was decided. The sky was clear. The area was split into several buildings around the village. From what Haiguchi she had told me, Fujiyoshi had a population of about. It was pretty small for an autonomous area, but it was still enough to make eating in one building impossible. We went into one of them. It was crowded, but upon seeing us, the villagers stepped aside as if this was all planned. Apparently, everyone here did what it could to accommodate Higuchi Shi. Also, everyone was staring at me like I was an alien or something, but it felt like the presence discouraged them from staring too long. That attitude aside, everyone here looked pretty normal. Your usual Japanese people from before was nowhere to be seen. Maybe they just looked because it was early morning. Most looked like they were farmers, but I could also see some students in uniforms bearing the same design as the ones worn by the students in Yasumizu. The building itself was an aged wooden structure, but it was a whole lot bigger than Yasumizu and looked way sturdier too. The interior wasn't too pretty, but it was spacious. You grabbed the tray right after walking in, and they then got tea and rice bowls or whatever from the ladies in aprons. It felt like a high school cafeteria, but you couldn't choose what you wanted. You could refuse what you didn't want, though.
ああ、こちら僕が面倒を見るから。
He spoke to the elderly woman one after another and made them stop staring at me with suspicion. Then we took our trays and without paying anything, apparently they had something like a union due for that, how effective, walked away. Parting the crowd, we searched for a place to
ちょっ
sit
と
down.
手狭ですが、まあしっかり食ってください。
I really appreciate getting to eat a normal meal. Lots of rice, miso soup, the one with the vegetables and boiled beans. I thought it was a vegetarian at first, but then it felt like something meaty inside.
獅子ですよ。不慣れでしょうが、そんなに癖はないでしょ
Shishi like, shishi? Boar?
う。ああ、いえ。この辺では鹿やらイノシシやら肉は全部まとめて獅子です。
Oh yeah, I heard that. Shishi. Once used to be the Japanese reading for meat, before it became iko.
よくご存知ですね。この辺じゃ昔から狩猟が盛んで、今でもこうして取れたらちょっとずつみんなで分け合うんですよ。
I hadn't thought I'd eat wild game in some communal eatery. Lucky me. Though the taste was kind of bland overall. I could detect some soy sauce on the vegetables, while the boiled beans were kind of sweet. Soup stock, too, made me think they used the minimal amount of flavoring. The miso soup didn't really seem like miso soup. It's more like a stew, probably because shishi was the only thing they used for the stock. I tasted more of it and realized that the overboiled meat still had some sort of beastly texture smell about it. I couldn't call it good, but it was a unique local meal not everyone had the chance to eat. The eatery was still crowded as people came and went, but Haiguchi, she didn't seem bothered as we talked. I kept up with him during the conversation, repeating the same lies I had told the officer, making sure to look as much a poor unfortunate soul as I could. He smiled all the way through, even as he injected now. Again, I felt like he was at least 100 times crappier than the officer. I wondered if it was my inner contrarian speaking. After that, Haiguchi Shi and I returned to the
夫
office.
妻子さんには藤吉に移住してもらってはいかがでしょうね。
It was what I wanted to hear, but I couldn't let it show on my face. While the officer was against it, he didn't intend to argue too strongly. He and Haiguchi Shi discussed some things, but it seemed like Haiguchi Shi already knew how he'd treat me. It didn't look like the officer takes matter to him. After a few exchanges, the officer caved, and it was my turn to
夫妻
speak.
子さんもそれでいいですね。
Now that was a smile I couldn't say no to, even if I wanted to. Well, it really did seem like the heads of Kami Fujiyoshi were a twisted bunch. Yes, this community is a godsend for me.
すぐ住んでもらえそうなのがとりあえずはちょっと離れた場所になっちゃいますがね。
Was he serious? I don't mind. What kind of place is it?
まあまあ追って説明しますよ。ああ、そういえばそっちに行く人たちがいたような気がするな。
There's two, huh?
一緒に行ってもらいましょ
There was no mistaking it. He smiled like he was harmless while forcing me into the settlement for the orchestras. So do I have to sign
う。
anything?
転入転出とかはとりあえず後回しでなんとかしましょう。とにもかくにもまずは住むところですね。駐在所にずっと泊めてもらうのじゃ迷惑でしょうからね。私はそっち方面に行く人たちにちょっと話を通してきますよ。ああ、下の連中にも一報しなきゃな。ちょっとバタバタしそうだけど昼までにはどうにかなるでしょう。それじゃ一旦ここで。
He one-sidedly ended the conversation and left the post. Nice guy. On the surface, in a way.
まあ
The officer understood the situation and didn't like it, but I couldn't go against one of the heads. This was probably why Chimi said we couldn't trust the police. In Fujiyoshi, even government intuitions were only secondary authority. Anyway, what could I make of this? I did actually expect to be sent to Yamasu. The people here had no interest in harboring outsiders. We weren't welcome. Or maybe they wanted to avoid the initial trouble caused by immigration by making me live with the orchestras until I get used to the village. Whatever the case, this wasn't something I had to say in, which made it seem really bad. That was probably why the officer was so against it. I could understand that. Haiguchi Shi, on the other hand, seemed a bit heavy-handed with all this. I could understand him wanting to set me up with a place quickly, but as someone who knew about the feast, I couldn't help but be suspicious of the timing. The mist would come this evening. He wanted to give Yasumizu a new inhabitant until then. Did Haiguchi Shi, the head of Kami Fujiyoshi, understand what that meant?
ちなみに読んだことない？宝生9個の記事。
Sorry. I went through a highly familiar exchange and finished my introduction. Hello, it's nice to meet you.
どうも。
He was hard to deal with, as always. Haiguchi Shi worked fast, though. He'd gotten back to me before noon, and before I knew it, I was greeting the ones who led me to my place. Just as I expected, they were the
樋
journalists.
口さんはもう安水の方に連絡されたってことらしいけど、不在？
Yes, I'm more worried about you, in fact.
もちろん。お昼に間に合うならお腹空かせて苦しまなくていいしね。
I see, so you intend to come later for their convenience.
そうそう。向こうの人たちの昼食時を回避した方がいいって話してね。こっちとしては皆さんの普通の食事風景を取材したいから、その点でもラッキーってとこかしら。
Oh, so this has probably also had something to do with the people of Fujiyoshi not wanting to show their daily lives to outsiders. They could have just refused them completely, though. Did the journalists have connections that made them impossible to refuse, or did they just want to show what a developed settlement was? Maybe they had no connection of letting them go. Unlikely. They were to kill anyone from Yasumizu or some nobody like me. They could easily conceal it due to how isolated the area location was. The two journalists had come here to make an article. If something were to happen to them here, it'd be certain to draw unwanted attention to the village. On the other hand, if Kami Fujiyoshi people knew that the feast was near, they probably wouldn't have allowed them
そんな
here.
わけでもう出ちゃおうかと思いますけど、橋本さんどうです？
いいと思
Whoa, he was slow, but he actually communicated with someone. That was rare. So, sorry for the bother, and thank you
う。
for having
いえ
me.
いえ。
That was the first exchange I'd share with him in this life.
もちろん。じゃあ乗って乗って。
The van started, slowly traveling down the farms. Come to think of it, May was rice. The field had water all over it. It didn't display a single weed. It was full of people. They're not using
その
machines.
ようね。ここの人たちはみんなあんまり新しいものは好きじゃないみたい。
Combines, tractors aren't that new. If you ask me, I'm impressed they're doing such a good job by hand.
回ってないと思うわ。だから今はメーカーの人たちが中心になって重機を導入しようとはしてるらしいけど、
I see, like
農
Haiguchi-san?
業改革の方は三車さんという方たちが担当しているって聞いたわ。
I see, so they have money, huh?
そうみたいね。どういうからくりかはわからないけど。
Something has to be work here.
いや、まあそのね。基本的に外からの収入が出稼ぎのみで、高齢化で人が減ってる産地の町村にしては、メーカーさんはお金持ってるなって。
Really?
ええ、三車さんち、とっても大きかったわよ。大きな会社も止まってたし。
Yeah, even if it was something that could easily be explained, it was still something to keep in
ふ
mind.
ーちゃん。
はい。
The strange nickname Hashimoto-san used surprised me, but Mimiya-san herself didn't seem
あんま
bothered.
り憶測は良くないね。記者魂が騒ぐかい？
そんな偉いもんじゃないですけど、
今回はこのまま流すのがいいよ。
それは名写真家の勘です。
どうかな？
ま、わかりました。専門外ですしね。というわけで、さっきのは忘れて。
Yes. Nope.
ちなみに、あなたはこっちへ移住するって聞いたけど、
That's how it turned.
これから行く場所については聞いてる？
I didn't, but I can imagine what it's like. Her words made her give me a strange
と
look.
いうと
This probably isn't a good place to live in. It's being separated from the main settlement and
なん
all.
でそう思うの
Few people looked comfortable about how I'd be treated, while Haiguchi-san looked less like a nice guy and more like someone who could easily shrug off any guilt his actions would cause
そう
him.
か
Don't mind me, though. I'm satisfied with where I'm going.
余計なお世話かもしれないけど本当にかなり偏僻なところよ田舎への憧れだけじゃ耐えられないかも
Don't worry, compared to dying, any place is heaven. Wait, that must sound strange. What an awkward laugh. Apparently they had been told. I'd almost... I'm curious, though. What kind of place is it?
特別な地区
Q ちゃん
She tried choosing her words carefully, but that made it sound worse than just a place. Hashimoto-shi seemed to be warning her, but she continued talking anyway.
私もまだわからないけど意図的にその理不尽な境遇に置かれた人たちが住まわされ上藤吉この辺りの人たちからはあまりよく言われてないその場所も人もね
情報は軽々に漏らしちゃだ
相手を選んでます何も知らされずに住まわされる人が本来知ってしかるべき公正な情報提供ですよ
それでも彼に事前に言っておくべきだ
そうですねすみません
Sure, I won't say a word to the people there.
その上で大丈夫考え直すなら今日ここを帰るときに一緒にあ橋本さんどうでしょうか
彼が望むなら考
久石さん一緒に出ていく気は
These two had an interesting relationship. Did all the talking. Hashimoto-san seemed to outrank her. Hell, though he didn't speak much, everything he said was really well constructed, made sense, so to speak. While Mamimiya-san often became overly excited, Hashimoto-san was strangely stable, and not just in terms of appearance. Wait, this is no time to my traveling companion. No, I don't feel like going back to the city anymore. Thank you for the consideration, though.
でも
Mimiya-san, you're probably saying this as a fellow city dweller, but you realize I'm a pretty shady character myself, right? I'm just grateful for your help. That's more than
そ
enough.
うなら何も言わないわ
うさいし春明くんだっけ
Yes.
行き詰まりそうな人には見えないけどな
I get that a lot. Must be my carefree attitude.
そうか失礼したね
私中学の時の同級生が一人自殺してるんですけどいっつも能天気でみんなまさか彼だけはって思いましたよ
そういうものかもね
I might have said too much. Recalling all the scene at the officer's post, I tried to get back into the character of the poor. The van slowly umbled. We approached a slightly more open space. It seemed to be the center of the village and looked like there were small shops there. But as we went on, it started to become even more and more desolated, and you could see more and more trees growing between the buildings. If there were Kamifujiyoshi ended, it was only about 3 kilometers across. If it was about 10 square kilometers in size, had 100 people for every one of them. The stones I'd seen back in Yasumizu were nowhere in sight. Apparently they really were Yamisusi exclusive. I could see a large building, and Mami-ya-san told me it was the ranch school from some nearby town. All students in Fujiyoshi must get their education there before moving on to the help in the fields. The smarter ones left the work outside the village upon graduating high school. Those who went from there to college were rare, meaning that at least relatives to other locals, Chimi was a prodigy. The student from Yasumizu should have been in school this time of the day. Once we passed the last resident, we entered an area most untouched by human hands. The road led us into the overgrown mountains. There were large stones on each side of the road.
象徴的でしょ？鳥居みたい。
Tories?
神の使いたる鳥の宿り木、もしくは聖域へと至る結界の入り口。富士吉では山岳信仰があるみたいね。
Oh, great Lord
知って
Chinai.
るの？
Crap. Haiguchi-san told me about a few things.
でもこの村の外ではあんまり聞かないのよね。この山が特別だって話。神内っていう神格も聞いたことないし。字面からすると猿関係なのかな。でも神を猿に振り分けるのは単に暦と方角の話よね。
Weren't your articles about food?
失礼。もともとはオカルトライターをやってたの。全然食べてけなくてすぐ転校したけどね。
She looked like your typical neat and fashionable career woman, so this was really unexpected. Really, it sounds interesting though.
今の時代、うさんくさい情報を読みたい人はみんなネットを見るからね。紙に書かれた怪奇情報はみんな嘘で、本当の怪奇情報はネット。そんな住み分けになっちゃったみたい。残ったわずかなパイはみんな重鎮の先生方に取られちゃうからね。新人にはきつい世界だったかな。
Now that she's mentioned it, I hadn't seen as many magazines on the occult and the supernatural these days. No idea if that was a good thing though. The car passed a large boulder. The road ahead is to get bumpy. Be careful. The moment he said that, the car jumped and scared the crap out of me. If those were stones, the mountain boundaries, there were now Great Lord Shinai's turf. Beyond it, we find Yasumizu. The entrance to Yomi was beyond the sacred ground. This religion just kept getting weirder and weirder. Eventually, the pavement ended and we were on gravel road. The gravel of trees became a dark forest. It was cloudy, so there wasn't much light to begin with, which only made this place extra creepy. I composed myself after all. The real creepiness was at the end of the road. We weren't saying a word anymore. That about mundane stuff like the convenience of cars. Went down on the side of the mountain for about 20 minutes and eventually made it through the God's narrow road. Beyond the dense forest there was a relatively open space. We'd achieved right at the entrance I'd passed when Haru-chan escaped the settlement. When I searched for her, there were the same two large stones, and they did a great job telling me that this was some kind of boundary. I felt like I heard a hint of nervousness in her tone. We are about to enter a strange realm. Were we already there? There are no point thinking about it now. We'll just pass the gate. And she was... I stared carefully not to lose sight of her. Our eyes met. Mysterious red stare, white hair trailing behind her. She looked at the van as we passed. And she fell. Ah, she hit the stone. She hit her head on the stone and is now writhing in pain. Hey, stop the van. Sudden as it was, Hashimoto-shi stopped the van. I jumped out and ran to her. Are you alright? She was still raving on the ground with her hands on her head. There was no trace of divinity or mystery from last time, or from just a moment ago. I can tell. Just a passerby. Hold on. Oh, so you fill up the joking around at least, huh? The girl, or rather woman, since she was older than me, became red as a tomato right before my eyes. Rikako Amatsu. Was she an albino? Her skin and hair were pale, while her eyes were blood red. Her unusual appearance, manner of speech were exactly as I remembered. But man, where did this playfulness come from? Well, I haven't spoke to her much last time, so maybe I didn't know her as well as I thought I did. Are you okay? Be honest.
痛いのは平気な証拠と、ありし日の母はもう
Hey, that depends on the situation. Excuse me. Slightly hesitant, I reached out on her head and gently touched it and examined the damage. You're bleeding a bit. That's gonna leave a bump. You should just take it easy for a
お医
while.
者様でいらっしゃる。
No, this is the sort of common knowledge from the look of the wound. It isn't that bad, is it? Are you okay?
いえ、なんだか髪を触られると、悪い気持ちではないのですが、なんだか
Was the skin on her head sensitive or something?
いきなり第一村人とスキンシップとは、不妻子くんやるわね。
What are you saying?
茶髪の男が上松様を手ごめにしよる。
No, I'm not. Listen up to Lady Umatsu-sama here slipped and head, so I just...
上松様、この馬の骨にどんなハレンチな真似をされなすったか。なんとかわいそう、なんと恐ろしい。
She wasn't listening at all. Feeling a bit stupid for worrying so much about her, I explained what happened and cleared up the misunderstanding.
ご迷惑をおかけしまして。
誤解を受ける方が悪いのよ。
Sorry.
上松様、とりあえずお家で横になっとるのがええ。
山脇さん、ご心配なさらず。
今ちょうど野里様が休みずに来とられますからね。今呼びますから。
下まで。
お願いしようか。
This was unusual. She hated outsiders, but she couldn't say no to Hashimoto-san's appearance.
上松さんですっけ。病院とか行かなくて大丈夫です。お医者様がいらっしゃるので。そうならいいけど。手を貸すわ。乗れる？お手数をおかけします。妻子くん悪いけど後ろね。
It's full of equipment, though. I can
や
walk.
めなさい。
I'd been talking nonchalant, but her response was a stern one. Well, it was true. I could have caused some serious trouble if I arrived completely alone. I knew this from my experience through Saranaga. Also, I wasn't supposed to be familiar with the area. I had to avoid looking suspicious.
本当にすみません。
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
いえ、上松理香子と申します。回るに末で上松、すももの花で理香子です。
All right, we haven't properly introduced ourselves. Haruki Fusha from kitchen, Shishi from stone tools, and Haruaki from the Japanese neo-Confucianism.
不妻子春明様。
I felt like she didn't get it at all. In a way, thanks to that, I became an inhabitant of the back seat and a fellow passenger along Rikako. For a brief moment, in a way, we didn't speak much. The only noteworthy thing was the strange smell of dried aromatic wood she brought around with her. Aromatic. Besides that, I was just struggling to keep my seat as we jolted down the bumpy road. Leaving a trail on the unpaved road, we arrived and drove through Yasumizu. We passed the front of Nosato Mansion. then the construct site, Tae-san's house probably, until finally we arrived at the plaza. By the time we got there, Matsu-san seemed to be in perfect health and apologized profusely for the trouble she caused. My Mimiya-san and I went along her and took her to the house she was living in. It was the same place where she lost her mind and the rest of us had barricaded her in.
念のため野里様を待ちます。
お大事にね。
はい。夫妻師様もこのご恩はきっと。
Oh, don't worry about that.
ねえ。
Whoa. I completely forgotten about Umsamasi-san's
あ
extra.
ら、どこの子？
昨日会いませんでしたか。おととい休みずに迷い込んだ子です。
あら、上富士吉から？それじゃあ今日連れて行きますよ。
いえ。
Why not ask someone else? Rikako needs to rest. You have a point.
それじゃあ上松さん、失礼するわ。この子はいいのかしら。
メイコ。
Umsamasi-san called to Meiko and brought her inside. A stronger smell began whiffing from the building. Maybe they were
可
burning
愛いわよ
incense.
ね、彼女。しかも、あの風貌にあの装束。神秘的だわ。
Attire?
気づかない？形は巫女服っぽいけど、墨染めなとこは仏門っぽい。明らかに宗教的な意味がある格好。こんな偏僻な場所に独自の信仰があるなんて。
It's good to be aesthetic about your work, but there are limits to how far you should pry, don't you think? And everyone seemed to be to appear out of nowhere this time.
あら、野里さん、すみません、失礼しました。上松さんの手当てで？
Yes, if you are aware of that, then please clear the way. And who is this man?
あ、樋口さんの紹介で今度こちらに住むことになった。
Huh? Hello, I hope we get along. You're not from Fujiyoshi, are you? No, I'm not. Things happened. I left Tokyo and ended up here. What? Higuchi thinking. You have my sympathy, though. In a way, I'm off. I'm coming in. Rikako-san. Sympathy, huh? As condescending as always. After parting ways with him, we returned to the plaza. Hashimoto-san was taking photos of a small flower nearby. I could imagine that one told him to take photos out of the house. We were the only ones here. I couldn't hear anything but the wind. It was strangely quiet.
相変わらず。
She fell silent before finishing her comment. Wise move. Wouldn't it be good to finish that comment by comparing the place to a ghost town?
じゃあ行こうか。食堂なんだよね、話が言ってるのって。
Yes. Despite having next to nothing to do with me, my Mimiya-san was helping me out a lot. Then again, she was heading there too.
まあお待ちしてました。夫妻師さんでしたっけ。それに宝生さん、橋本さん。
どうも。
どうもどうも。
It took a lot to keep myself from saying hello, hello, hello. Higuchi-san sent me here. A pleasure to meet you. Soji Higuchi-san had pushed me into working at the dining hall here. Not the watering hole, but dining hall. He strongly emphasized that it wasn't under his control. That's why it had been decided that I meet Kori-san. She had an oval, composed, slightly haggard face, and I couldn't see a hint of demon from her. Apparently, if it was for their children, some parents could become both demons and angels. I kind of felt like that implied to the entire history of mankind, for better or worse.
きちんとされてるのね。 お若いのに。
Oh no, I'm just a failure.
まあそんな。でも本当にいいのかしら。こんなね。
It's fine, many people say otherwise, but this is a nice
そ
place.
う。でも聞いたかわからないけれど、食堂といっても炊き出し係みたいなものだから。その言いにくいのだけど、お給金とかは食事はもちろん出せるのだけれど。
I don't mind. If I can live a simple life, I don't need money. What in our fart? Suddenly, Yoshitsugu Orobi-kun walked through the door, displaying the same recklessness that had gotten him killed last time.
吉次、あんた学校はどうしたの？
Shut it. I ain't said I ain't going. Hey, you fucking zombie. Heard you came here 'cause you couldn't die. That's so lame.
吉次、あんたなんてことを。
Oh, word spread fast around here. They told Kori-san about it, but she told it to these several other people and it probably leaked. Yeah, I'm so lame. The hell? You okay upstairs? I can't say I am. I'm an idiot. Hey, Hag, don't hire this guy. He'll mess up the place.
学校も行かない、手伝いもしないあんたが何を言うの？
Shut up. Hey, you brown-haired dumbass. You seriously came here to die, or you act like... Or is that an act or something? I twitched. Ha ha ha, as if... Ha. Hey, Hag. Guy's weird as hell.
私はババアなんて名前じゃありません。
Ha 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 ha.
外野から悪いんだけど、妻子くん悪ふざけはほどほどにね。
Sorry, I just felt like we'd be living together for a long time, so I ought to be as friendly as possible. Yoshitsugu-kun, was it? Want to make a bet? What kind of bet, you coward? I looked into my large bag and took something out. Specifically, a new pocket knife. Use this to cut off my pinky. Everyone instantly fell silent. I ignored them and continued. Come on, I'll put my hand out and put the knife right here. The hell you say? I'm saying I'll let you shorten my finger as a sign of our friendship. I'm saying that's insane. Hell, that's something you'll do yourself. You're making me do this 'cause you can't do it yourself, huh? You really are a coward, huh? I can do it myself, but this is a bet and a test of courage. If you're gonna call me a coward, you gotta show that you're not one yourself, right? Swing the knife down, you win. If I don't back out, I win. That means that if you cut off my finger, we both win. Then we'd be friends with no hassle involved. What do you think? I smiled and pointed at the knife on the table with my finger. The hell are you talking about? Are you nuts? That's pretty much all you're gonna say now, but yeah, I really am nuts. Or, what, you prefer normal people? You who looks like that and gives no respect to his mother? I prefer weird people, you see. Show me how insane you can get. Man, this is too much fun. Looked right about ready to but it was about time to back off. Gotcha. What a shame. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do something like that. I'd hurt much. Well, even if we can't get along now, we'll be friends eventually. I actually think this helps. Jokes aside, he was actually pretty sharp. He and his brother were nothing alike, but it wouldn't be surprising if he also had a talent for seeing through people. He had high Gucci blood in his veins, after all. Perhaps it was genetic. He left without saying another word. Kori-san didn't even tell him to go to school. I'm sorry. That was weird, wasn't it?
いえ、うちのバカ息子がとんだ失礼を。でもちょっとびっくりしたわ。弾力が終わりなのね。
No, I don't. I'm the one who called it off, so I lost. He probably would have done it if I kept pushing him. After all, he is the type who pick a fight with something inhuman or didn't die. He probably didn't want to draw blood in the front of his mother. I think he's a good kid at heart. My words almost made Kori-san smile,
い
but
え、ほんとお恥ずかしい限りで、体ばかり大きくなって、私などはもう口出しくらいしかできなくて。
she decided to keep up the act of a strict mother. Puberty, rebellion sure seemed
久
complicated.
石君、ちょっと
I did just
あ
that.
なたもしかしてあっち系の人間？追っ手がかかって逃げてきたとか、捕まったらけじめとか？
Huh? No, I suggested the finger thing for no real reason. Trust me, I won't I won't trouble the people
な
here.
らいいけど。
She was actually suspicious. I had to act out a better normal person. This wasn't the time to mess up around. Anyway, I'm here to help with anything. Use me however you like.
それは構いませんよ。どのみち上の方の決めたことなのだし。ただ、住むところをどうしようかしらね。
Oh, I'd kind of expected them to be already decided on that. I'm gonna go introduce myself to everyone. Who should I ask
基
about
本
that?
的に土地のお話は山脇さんのところかしら。
さっきのおばあさんよ。車で通った一軒家に住んでらっしゃるわ。
Oh yeah, then Takumi-san gave me the key to my dorm room. He told me he got it from the old lady. Was she the landlord? Maybe she's not too far, like visiting Utsumatsu-san or something.
上松さん、
さっき転んで頭を打って。
I left that, talked to Mimiya-san, opened the door so I could see the plaza. By the time I realized that someone was on the other side, it was fully open. And there, I'm gonna stop for today. Remember to ring those bells, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one.